Yeah, my name is Brian Branco. I live in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. I live probably about 10 miles from Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan. Um, on September 11th was a beautiful, clear, sunny day. One of those days, not a cloud in the sky. You can see for miles and miles and miles and just see clear, beautiful blue sky. It was 70 degrees in the morning. It's a cool, beautiful day. It was my first day back at work early. I was a consultant for Baseline, Thompson Financial Baseline, which means I didn't work for them as a full-time employee. I was more kind of as needed, but I was with them for, maybe not the right word. I was with them for we were in the towers for about 2 years, and I was with them for about 6 years at that point in time. I was there in their offices probably about 3 or 4 days a week. Like I said, my first day back early, being a consultant, I kind of had the luxury to go in a little bit late. That summer, we had a good summer. We had a pool put in that summer. So I was kind of going to work a little bit late, which was fine. So the week before, Bob, the vice president who I worked for, he goes, "When are you going to come back in early?" Like kind of joking around. I said, "Bob, one of my normal days. I'll be back on Tuesday. One of my normal days. September 11th was a Tuesday." I said, "I'll be back in on Tuesday. No big deal." So I was at my desk that morning about 7:30, quarter to 8. Baseline had software for the stock market. So the stock market in New York City opens at 9:30. So out of the 200 or so, 225 employees or 230 employees that we had about 20 people in the offices. We were in the South Tower on the 78th floor. So we had all of 77 and half of 78, and I was on the 78th floor. So my first day back, so I was in the office 7:30, quarter to 8, and my view was a southeast view, Manhattan Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge. I had a window seat. I don't have a window office, but my cubicle was looking out a window, so I had a pretty good view. About quarter to 9, I felt a little vibration. Nothing really I thought about out of the ordinary. A couple minutes later, out my window, I saw papers flying, and we were about 800 feet in the air or so, 850 feet thereabouts. At that height, you're not supposed to see much. We were there other times above the police helicopters, above the blimps, above the Cessnas. One time we were there, I was there in the building. It rained on the ground and we had sun all day long. We were above the clouds. It was really a freaky thing to experience, especially that day with the rain. That was really weird. So in my building, you took an elevator. If you worked on the 82nd floor, for instance, you took an express elevator from the first floor to my floor to 78, and then you took a local to 80, 82 above us. So I felt a little vibration, and I basically went out to it was called the Sky Lobby. So it was like a transfer floor. So I went out to the Sky Lobby, and somebody said Tower 1 got hit by a plane. I thought a little Cessna. I thought it was a little 2-seater plane. He got pushed into the building. Usually it's windy down there. I figured he was screwing around by the building, trying to get an uplift to move the plane a little bit differently, and he just messed up, and he got into the building. That's exactly what I thought. I went back to my desk, called my wife, we had a quick conversation. I bought a sports car in the summer, and this is a Tuesday, and that Friday night before, I would not let her drive it. So we were fighting all weekend. So I kissed her goodbye that morning, and she wiped the kiss off her face and said, "Go to work." I said, "Okay." So I called her at work and I said, "Listen, something happened in Tower 1. It got hit by a plane or something." And she goes, trying to lighten the mood up, she goes, "What, the moron didn't see the building?" They're kind of big. It was a clear blue sunny day, right? And I said, "Listen, I can't talk to you now." And she goes, "Whatever," and hangs up on me. And we don't do that anymore. We learned a valuable lesson that day. So basically the plan that I had, I was with 4 other people on the 70th floor, and the rest of the people, the other 20 people or so, on 77. So the plan we had was to go downstairs, see what was going on, and go back up. So I was going to the elevators with Steven, and he said to me, "I forgot something in my office." I said, "I'll see you downstairs." Just kind of like we're talking now. I don't remember any urgency, any panic. I do have some memory loss up there. So I got to the Sky Lobby, and these 5 or 6 women had their arms locked, and they were getting on our next elevator no matter what. And the elevators held 50 or 60 people each. I don't know if you guys know about the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. They planted a truck bomb in the basement in the parking garage and tried to get the North Tower to collapse into the South Tower. 6 people died, and that was the first attack on the Trade Center. So I don't know if these women were there in that attack or not, but they were determined to get out in the elevators. So I got pushed on or dragged on with them. I don't know. And the elevators were big. They held 50 or 60 people. They went down very fast. Went down 800 feet in a minute or so. So they went down very, very fast. And towards the bottom, just like they did every other time, they have to slow down to stop. I remember being in the elevator and people were screaming in the elevator, "It's going back up. It's going back up." And I seem to remember being rational. I don't know if that's true or not. No, I'm like, it does this every day. It goes down very, very fast, and then it's got to slow down to stop. Got down to the bottom floor. The doors opened up like they did every day. And my exit of the building would have been Liberty Street, which is right there. Looked like there was all glass doors there, revolving glass doors. The doors were locked. There's all debris outside. It looked like a war zone outside. So building security was the first level of the World Trade Center. The first floor was either building access. So if you worked there, you were a visitor, you went there, or it was a shopping mall. So building security from the elevators were basically pushing everybody into the mall. But I remember being in the mall and people and the security keeping us away from Tower 1. Excuse me. I remember being in the mall and the police yelling, "Get out of the building, get out of the building." And I'm like, but building security is pushing everybody in here. It was chaos. It was complete and utter chaos. There was no other word for it. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had an answer. Nobody, nothing. I ended up walking through the mall. I ended up on the north side of the site. I was on the south side of the site. So I ended up walking through the shopping center to the north side of the site pretty much. And I exited the mall. I was 2 blocks away. I was on Church Street and Barclay Street. So as I got up there, I turned the corner and I said to myself, "Oh, I know the building." The building was about 2 blocks away, 2 city blocks away. So it was a pretty decent sized distance away. I said to myself, "Oh, I know that building. The ferry's right behind it." I took the ferry over that day from New Jersey. I said, "I'll go get my car. I'll go and I'll call Bob later, so I'll be back in tomorrow." That was my plan. So as soon as I turned the corner, the other plane hit. I never saw it. I was too close to it. I felt it. I felt it on the ground. 74 floors down. It hit from 74 to 84, and 77 and 78 would impact floors, and our side of the building would impact floors. I felt it on the ground. The building was a federal building there, post office, and it looked like the building rippled. It didn't collapse. It was like a sound wave almost, I guess you could say, on the ground. I felt the pressure from it. I felt the heat from it on the ground, 800 feet down. My memory's kind of a little whacked out there because to this day, and this bothered me back then, it doesn't bother me anymore. Back then, I retraced my steps several times, and the building, so we ran into a building entrance on 100 Church Street. There's a side entrance on Barclay Street. So to this day, the building entrance in my mind is 15 feet down the street, and it's really 200-300 feet away. It just doesn't make sense. The whole timing is off. It's just really weird. But we ran into the lobby of that building. That side entrance came back through the front of the building, ended up back on Church Street, ended up walking north. I need to get to New Jersey on a normal day. It's a 4-minute train ride across the river. Ended up walking north. As I was walking through the city, I walked about 15, 16 miles that day probably. As I walked through the city, I heard the Pentagon got hit, the White House got hit, the Capitol got hit. I didn't know what to believe. I needed to get across the river. There was no trains out of New York City. There was no cars out of New York City, out of Manhattan. There was no trains out of Manhattan. There was no cars out of Manhattan. The Lincoln Tunnel was closed. The Holland Tunnel was closed. The only bridge to New Jersey, people were walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, to get to Brooklyn and Queens, but I needed the opposite direction. George Washington Bridge is probably about 30 or 40 miles north of where I was, so that was really an option, but it could have been. I ended up going to Midtown Manhattan. I ended up walking up to Jacob Javits Center, Madison Square Garden area, and I saw a lot of people waiting kind of by the water. I said to somebody, "What's this line for?" And they're like, "It's for the ferry." Okay, New York Waterway, they have small boats that go back and forth all day long between New York and New Jersey and hold about 100 people each, maybe 200 people. Somebody said to me that the line for the ferry is 19 blocks long, 19 city blocks long. Tens of thousands of people in line waiting for a boat that holds 200 people going back and forth, just back and forth. I got lucky. By the time I got up there, Circle Line, everybody donated boats. Circle Line does big tours around Manhattan on the water. They started donating boats. I got on the third boat to New Jersey, a whole 500 or 600 people. I got the third boat to New Jersey. If you want to see a good documentary, it's called Boat Lift, 9/11 Boat Lift. It's basically, if you had, Manhattan is an island. There's no way off of Manhattan unless there's water or, a car. It's called Boat Lift. Tom Hanks narrates it. It's about the rescue of 9/11, about everybody who came with a boat to help. You had a boat that held 4 people. You came, you put 3 people on your boat, and you brought them to New Jersey. It was just amazing how people came to help. I got to Jersey City, New Jersey, right across the river, and I was still walking. There's no way to. My cell phone, actually, I had a cell phone back then. This is 19 years ago. My cell phone did not work in New York City. I ended up stopping at the payphone and calling my wife several times. I'm sure you guys don't even know what a payphone is. But as soon as I got to New Jersey, my cell phone worked. I ended up trying to figure out where I was in New Jersey, and ended up walking all through New Jersey. And my wife picked me up probably about 3 or 4 miles from my house. That's as close as she can get to New York City from where we live. She couldn't really get in, so I walked the distance there too. Excuse me. I was in my house by 2:30 in the afternoon. I was home by about 2:30. The people I was with. So like I said, Thompson Financial Baseline, we had about 20 people on the 77th floor. One person didn't get out, Ruth. She was with the company for 2 weeks. I didn't know her. And then with me on 78, we had 4 other people. Miles got out. We had trauma counseling the following week, and I didn't know he was there, and he didn't know I was there. It was a pretty decent sized office. I said to him the following week, I said, "Why did you leave?" He goes, "I'm from Northern Ireland. I heard a boom and I left," because there's a lot of violence and explosions in Northern Ireland. And that's as simple as he put it to me. The other people, Bob Levine, he was the vice president. When I was leaving, he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Bob, I'm going downstairs. Let's see what's going on." He's like, "Come on." I said, I'll be back, Bob." He didn't get out. He was an old stubborn guy. He was there till the end. Joe Maurer Campbell, Joe was Bob's secretary, and Jill was on the phone when I left. She was trying to figure out what was going on. And Jill's son, Jake, crawled that day for the first time on September 11th. And she never saw him crawl. And the other person was Stephen Weinberg. He was with me. He forgot something in his office. He went back to his office, and he was on the phone with his wife when the plane came in. And we know that for a fact. And like I said, we were the impact floors, 77, 78. With the wingspan, it hit from 74 to 84, but 77 and 78 were the primary impact floors, including that transfer floor where there were people waiting for the elevators to go down. And like I said, I was home about 2:30 in the afternoon. I was in my house. I think that's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with all the kids, and I mean, your memory of that, it's almost like it was yesterday. And just
sometimes it is, and sometimes, yeah.
So I have a number of student questions, and again, if there are any more questions, just go ahead and message them to me. If you would like to read them yourself, these questions, these particular students would like me to read it on their behalf. They wanted to know, what was your feelings like the next day, like when you woke up? Like, was there a feeling, because you had mentioned about you and Cynthia, and you were talking about how you kind of changed your ways, like when it came to separating. So was there a feeling of like gratification or what?
Well, the part that I left out, let me go back for a second. When my wife picked me up, probably about 3 or 4 miles from my house, Um, the first thing, well, one of the first things she said to me goes, "How come you're not covered in white dust?" And I said to her, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "The buildings fell. People are covered in white dust." I said, "You're out of your mind that the buildings fell." And she goes, "They fell." I said, "I don't believe you." We went home and watched it on TV. We watched it 3 or 4 times on TV. And I said to her, "Turn TV off because I can't watch my friends die." Um, it took me some time to deal with things. The next day was not good. The next month was not good, to be honest with you. Um, I was in a dark place for a while. I remember the following weekend, I think Friday or Saturday, my wife needed to get me out of the house because I was just nuts. Went to the mall, and I don't like myself for this, but I remember being in the mall and looking at everybody and hating everybody. I didn't care if you were black or white or brown or male or female, or you had a burqa on your head or you had a bathing suit on, a bikini on. I didn't care what you looked like. I hated you. And that took me a while to get over that. And it wasn't anybody's fault that was there. It was 19 terrorists did this, but it took me a while to deal with that, to get over that. Um, we've made changes in our life. We don't leave without, saying "I love you," saying goodbye, things like kiss goodbye. We made changes like that. It took some adjustments, but we're good.
We have a question from Nicholas, and Nicholas, I will unmute you. Nicholas is from Argentina. So once you unmute yourself, you can ask your question, sir.
Great. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So I have 3 questions to ask you.
Okay.
Maybe they are a bit strong, so I don't know if you
Okay.
would like to. Okay. So since that day, do you have any fear of being in tall buildings or in?
I've been in One World Trade Center. I've been up there at the observation deck several times. Um, I don't have a fear of going up necessarily, but I would never work in a tall building again. Like I'd go visit a building like the Empire State Building or the World Trade Center, the observation deck. I would go up, and I've gone up with friends of ours. They want to go up and they see it, but I would never work in a tall building again. I don't know if I could. And I have no desire to even go for a job there because I don't think I could. And I wouldn't want to take the chance of getting a job there and to say, "No, I can't do it." Or going for 2 weeks and saying, "No, I can't do this." No.
I wanted to see if you could add to talk to the kids about yours as well as Cynthia's efforts as far as volunteering at the museum. You guys have done so much great work since September 11th, and I want to see if you could share a little bit about that with the kids.
Sure. I think he said he had 2 other questions. You want to do them first?
Well, we'll get to the other questions first,
Okay.
but I think it's very important because these kids are in other countries that there's an actual museum dedicated to this. And there's
okay.
people like Brian and Cynthia who kind of are the lifeblood of this organization in this facility.
So what they did was they took the entire World Trade Center property was a 16-acre piece of property. It's I don't know what the dimensions are. They basically took half of that and they built buildings around it. And in the middle, where the original towers were, they built memorial pools. Okay, so the footprints of the original buildings sit in pools, and around the pools are names of the people who died. Underground, they built the National September 11th Museum. It tells the events of the day. It's a history of it, the events of the day. It honors the people who died. My wife and I have been. There's a couple different museums. Another museum called the Tribute Museum was down the block. We used to volunteer there. And then when the National Museum started talking about volunteers in 2014, 2013, 2014, we got involved with them. So we're docents, we're volunteers at the museum, which means we basically went through 100 hours of training. And we basically talk to visitors when they come in about the events of 9/11, whether it be answer their questions. I'll talk about my story if they ask, and not in so much detail, kind of like I did here, but I'll talk to them, and it's kind of my little way to give back. It's kind of my way to, make people remember because, and also tell them exactly what happened because there's a lot of fake news on the internet. There's a lot of things on the internet that, especially you guys are being young, don't believe everything you read on the internet because it's not true. A lot of it's not true. And there's a lot of stuff related to 9/11 that's not true, and everything else. So that's why we volunteer. And it helps me to be there. It's part of my therapy to be there. I haven't been there in 6 months with the COVID going around, but that's another story. But it helps me to be there. It helps me to talk to people. It helps me when tourists come into New York City and they're spending a lot of money on a hotel room a night. Okay. And there's 1,000 fun things to do in New York City, and you're at a sad and depressing place, which it really is. Okay. But to me, it's one of the important things you need to see as a human. If you ever come to New York, you need to go to the museum because it's touching, it's heartbreaking, and it's educational. And that to me is the most important thing, especially for you guys who are young, who might not even been born yet.
Great place to visit if you guys are ever in New York City. Very moving. We have a question from Theo in Argentina. So Theo, go ahead and unmute your
Hi,
mic.
Brian. How are you doing?
Hey.
I have a question, and maybe if you don't want to answer, it's okay. I know it's very hard to express these things. So I want to ask you if you have experienced any PTSDs or survival or syndrome, any of that?
I've had PTSD. I've had PTSD. It took me about 3 years to go for therapy. I'm not really a therapy person. The first time I walked into the therapist and I said, how long this is going to take? And she's looked at me. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, an hour session. I said, no, how many weeks do I need to come before I feel better? And I went through a time with her. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I don't know if I still have it or not. I mean, a therapist years later told me one of the signs of PTSD is avoidance, and I definitely do not avoid this. I'll go into the city. We have people come in. Anybody comes into the city, they call me. Can you meet us there? Can you do a tour? We bring them. There's no questions about it. So I did have PTSD for a long time. I think I still, every once in a while, it kicks up to me. My bad time of year is the middle of August to the middle of September, till September 10th for some reason, not the 11th. And things really just bother me then. The rest of the year, not so much. It's something you live with. You never get over it. You get through it. Let me put it that way.
Get through it, and that's all about persevering through adversity, and you embody that, and as well as your story. We have a question from Felicitas. My apologies if I did not pronounce that correctly, but she asked me to ask it on her behalf. She wanted to know what were your emotions when you found out that it was a terrorist attack?
I don't know. Be honest with you, somebody asked me that the other day too. I don't really know because I don't know if I was focusing on the terrorist part of it back then, as opposed to just what had happened. It's kind of weird to say. I don't know how to explain it, but I think I was more upset about. To me, it was more personal what happened, I think. So I don't think I focused on, this is the terrorist attack by, radical Islamists or, nothing like that. I don't think I even put those two things together for maybe a couple months even. I couldn't even tell you. It was more of a personal thing, what happened and what happened in the city and what happened to the people, as opposed to a group that caused it, I guess you can kind of say. Does it make sense?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the things that I found so amazing about your perseverance through all of this is that you built a passion for volunteering and helping so many people and inspiring and educating so many people, that I think that it's just unparalleled. It's absolutely incredible, like what you and Cynthia do. So thank you again for taking the time.
It helps me. It helps me. It really does. It really. That's why we volunteer, and I talk to people too. And like I said, especially with students, with your kids, it's the education. It's the education of it.
I know that the mantra was, we'll never forget, and we're gonna make sure that the next generation doesn't forget either. I'll do everything.
Okay,
in my-
I'm gonna-
So we have one last question, and it's again from Nicholas in Argentina. And then we'll thank Brian for his time. Nicholas, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so hi again.
Hiya.
Well, first of all, the job that you guys done in the museum is amazing. I had the chance to be in the museum 2 years ago,
You did, okay.
and
Great.
it was a really, really like educative thing to see and just to remember. So my last question is, what would be a good piece of advice that you would give someone after going through all of this?
Okay, this is how I usually end these things. So I'm gonna tell you guys exactly how I kind of end, my feelings on what you said. That's a very good question, actually. Okay. So out of 9/11, out of the heart, everything that came out of it, there's a bunch of good things if you can understand that. It's a foundation that they lost their firefighter son. He ran through the Midtown Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, sorry, with 60 pounds of gear on, went to the building, he died, and his family retraced his steps every year through a fundraiser. They started in maybe 2004, 2005 with 350 people. Last year, the New York City Fire Department capped it at 25,000 people. It's a fundraiser, it's a 5K, and they take the money they raise and they build housing for people coming home from war who need specialized housing. Plus, if something happens to a first responder in the area, they'll pay their mortgage, they'll pay their kids' tuition to college. Good things have come out of this. A friend of mine was in a bombing in Israel in 2003, and she started an organization that helps survivors and victims of terrorism. So a lot of good things have come out of this. For you guys, to kind of answer your question, do some volunteer work. It's a really good feeling. Whatever that volunteer is, it's a really good feeling to go help somebody, go do something. Whether you volunteer and clean your park up, or you go volunteer at an animal shelter, you help the animal, whatever it is, give a little back. It's a good feeling. It's really, really a good feeling. We've done it for many years. My wife complains about it sometimes, but in the past 6 months we miss it because of COVID. It's been a challenge. Don't have any, try not to live your life with regrets. I have very few regrets in my life. If I want to do something, I'll do it as long as I can. Appreciate the people in your life. That's very important to me because, like I said, this could have been different for my family. Go home, and when you guys go home tonight, give your moms and dads kisses and hugs. Okay, that's important to me because you don't know what'll happen tomorrow. Tomorrow's not, what's the word? There's a saying for it. Forget it. But tomorrow's not. Forget it. I lost my train of thought. Enjoy each day and don't worry about tomorrow because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And that's it. That's what I got.
You are the man. And please, thanks, Cynthia. And I'm going to unmute my colleague, Jessica, who you met.
Brian, on behalf of our dual diploma students who are here, on behalf of all of our academic students who are here in the United States also, I know I have a fellow administrator here also. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to meet with our students. And, you're right, tomorrow's not guaranteed and life is precious. And I feel like that's a message that I got as an adult also. And I hope that the kids also, enjoyed this session and hearing about your experiences. And again, thank you so much. It was moving and you have inspired me, as well as I'm sure the 75 students that are here with us.
My pleasure.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually unmute everybody real quickly so we can all say thank you. And then I'm going to end the meeting for all. So can we all say thank you to Brian? And you guys should be able to unmute yourselves. All right, I'm just going to unmute everybody. Can we all say thank you?
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.